Are you thinking about retirement? Well, if you're thinking about retirement, answer this. In retirement, what do you think your most hoped for goals will be that you will want to accomplish in retirement? Well, when you look at all the research that is done around this issue, most retirees will hope for these three goals: not ending up in an institutional care setting, not running out of money while they're living, and not becoming a burden to their loved ones. Now, these may not be the goals that you start out with in retirement, but if you're like most retirees, the deeper you go into retirement, the more important these goals will become to you. Why? It's simple. In retirement, there is hardly anyone who looks forward to the day that they fall ill and they will end up in a nursing home. Indeed, every American will hope to be able to live his or her life in his own home all the way to the end. But the sad reality is this: when we look at what happens to our friends, our neighbors, our relatives who grow old and are no longer able to take care of their own needs, they end up in institutional care settings. So here's some research, here's the studies, what they show. Less than 20% of Americans will be able to take their last breath sleeping on the same pillow they've always slept on, surrounded by their loved ones. 80% or more Americans will die either in a nursing home, in a hospice house, in a convalescent home, in a place somewhere other than they had hoped for. And that makes all of us nervous about retirement. And then add to this the reality that when people fall ill and they are no longer able to manage their own affairs, it turns out that Medicare is not the place where you're going to find much coverage to cope with the expenses that come with incapacity issues. And when Medicare is not going to pay off, you also realize very few people have an effective long-term care insurance policy, which means that people are going to end up spending thousands of dollars each month to deal with this unfortunate incapacity, which they had never hoped would be part of their lives. And many people will end up running out of money paying for these obscene expenses because they didn't plan otherwise. And finally, realizing that incapacity is inherently going to involve all your family members. Just hoping and wishing that you don't become a burden on other people doesn't make it so. The reality is you become ill, your children, your loved ones are involved in your life. The only issue is, how well prepared are they? In summary, imagine retirement to be a life where you're able to live your life without the fear of being put into a nursing home, without you becoming a burden on other people, and without running out of money. I think that is the life that we all hope and aspire for. So then the next question becomes, well, how do you plan for such an outcome? How does the average person indeed get ready to retire? When do you get the moxie to feel, yes, I am ready to retire? And we can go down a lot of different paths, but here's the reality. Majority of the people will plan for retirement almost the same way. And always starts somewhere around age 62, when we start getting the itch, the day we can go to our boss's office and say, I think I'm done working here. I don't need to be working anymore. Here are your keys, go find somebody. But the reality is this: no matter how much you would like to retire at age 62, you will probably end up waiting till age 65. Why? Because at age 65, you will qualify to enroll in Medicare. And mentally, we know that going into retirement without access to health care is not a good way to retire. So it's only when we are able to enroll in Medicare, buy a supplement plan, we are now going to actually take the step into retirement. And mentally, we will think that enrolling in Medicare and buying a supplement plan is all that we need to do to get ready for retirement from a healthcare perspective. The second area most of us will take a look at is the housing issue. Most of us will hope to be able to live our lives out in our own home. And that probably is the only planning that we end up doing, is having a fervent hope that we are able to live our life in our own home, but somewhat rational that if the day comes that we can no longer manage our affairs at the home, then we will figure something out at that time. And then we will take a look at the financial planning arena. And truth be told, the average person will equate financial planning to be proper retirement planning. Indeed, when you think about what people do to get ready for retirement, it's investing in 401ks, it's investing money, saving money, getting to build a large enough nest egg, making sure that you're going to be able to have a certain amount of money in retirement. And the average person probably has this notion that if we can go into retirement with a home that is paid for, a few $100,000 in the bank, then surely Medicare, Social Security, our savings, our debt-free lifestyle will probably be enough to see us through. And that is where the average person is going to spend most of their planning efforts, is in the financial planning arena. And the last area people will look at when they are getting ready to retire is probably legal planning. And legal planning in the minds of most people is pulling together some documents, a will, a trust, so that you can say in your own words who will inherit what from your estate when you are gone. A power of attorney, so you can empower people to be your spokespeople when you can no longer manage your health or your finances. And a living will, so everyone knows how you feel about artificial means of life support should you get into a situation where you can no longer manage to live on your own and you need outside intervention. You pull these three documents together and you think you have got most of your estate planning, legal planning in place. So the average person's retirement planning is really a multi-part planning. You will start with healthcare, enrolling in Medicare, buying a supplement plan. You will move to housing, probably having a hope that wherever you end up living in retirement or soon after retirement is where you will be able to live the rest of your life. You look at finances, where you spend most amount of effort, and then you look at legal planning. You go to lawyers and you prepare these documents. That is responsible planning. That is traditional ways to plan for retirement. And here at Aging Options, we take the notion that traditional retirement planning is a recipe for disaster for the average consumer. Now, why would we think so? Here's why. Let's say you've done the traditional planning, and you're sitting at home one day and you're watching your favorite TV show. And right in the middle of the TV show, out of left field, out of nowhere at all, a massive headache just grips you. And somewhere in the pit of your stomach, you know, this is not your Tylenol headache, this is something more. And you're smart enough to pick up the phone and dial 911. The EMTs come rushing through the door and say, glad you called, you're having a stroke. What are we dealing with? We're dealing with a health issue. How did we get ready to deal with this health issue? Well, we enrolled in Medicare and bought a supplement insurance plan. Does it pay off at this time? Well, yes, it does. It is thanks to your Medicare, it is thanks to your supplement plan that the EMTs probably take you to the hospital. And the doctor probably saves your life. And after 2 days in the hospital, the doctor walks into the room and says, oh, Mr. Nagaish, the moment we walked you into this hospital, the moment we wheeled you into this hospital, we drew some blood. And I know exactly why you had the stroke and what you need to do so you don't have the next one. Would you be interested in this information? I bet you will. And here's what the doctor probably says to you. Quit eating Cheetos at 2 o'clock in the morning. Get up, exercise, socialize, lose weight. Do all the things you inherently, intuitively know you should have been doing, but you have not done. And here's the reality. As your hospital doctor, I can't make you do those any more than your regular doctor does. So here's what I will do. I'll give you a bag full of pills and ask you to leave my hospital because I have 27 other patients who need this bed right now. But the reality is you can't go back home. So where do you think you end up? A rehab center. Yep, that's right, a rehab center. Now answer this. What's another word for a rehab center? A nursing home. And that's exactly where we didn't want to end up going. But most people will not look at this rehab center as a nursing home at this juncture. Why? Because this is continuity of care. This is a place where you will get physical, speech, occupational therapy, some therapy that is designed to help get you better so you can get better to go back home. So you end up in the rehab center. Let's say it's a Monday at 10 o'clock in the morning. You end up there. You take a quick look around the rehab center and you vow to yourself, you will do everything they're going to ask you to do. Why? Because you want out of this joint as quick as possible. And you probably set a date. You say, well, okay, by Friday, I'll be out of this place. And you do everything they ask you to do. What do they ask you to do? Eat right, exercise, socialize. They force all those issues on you so you can make some level of progress so you can actually get better to go back home. But Friday comes and goes. Sadly, you're still stuck there. Ouch. Well, you're thinking, okay, next week. Perhaps next Friday I'm out of here. Next Friday comes and goes, you're still stuck there. Wow, this is a major bummer at this time. On Saturday, your spouse, your child, that person you named as your agent in the power of attorney, that person happens to walk into the room and says, hi mom, hi dad, how are you? What do you think your answer is today? Don't hi me. Did you bring the pickup truck? Yeah, I want out of this joint. And now this will become a housing issue. Mind you, this is not a housing issue for you who is ill. This is a housing nightmare for every single person you promised you didn't want to become a burden to. But financially speaking, so far so good. Because who is paying for this care? Well, Medicare is. How long? It pays up to 100 days. So most of us will rationalize, well, 100 days is 3+ months. Well, how many people hang around nursing homes and rehab centers 3+ months? Except the second day that you got to the rehab center, the 10th, 12th, 15th, 20th, 30th, 40th, someday well before your 100 days are over. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Friday, mind you, a nurse walks into the room and says, Mr. Nagaich, you seem to have plateaued. You're not making progress anymore. And Medicare says they're going to stop paying your bills starting Monday. So what the heck happened to my 100 days? Well, the rule says it's up to 100 days. Never said they were going to pay for the full 100 days. You have to do your bit in it. So what are my choices at this time? Well, you could go back home. And you schmuck, you really think that I am hanging around this rehab center because of the gourmet dinners that you dish out every night, or the entertainment that you dish out every night. There's got to be some reason I can't go back home. If I could have found a way to crawl back home, I probably would have done it by now. What is my other choice? Well, you can stay here and you can pay privately. Well, how much do you think you would end up paying privately to get rehab in a rehab center? $500, $600 a day? Yeah, that's right. $500 to $600 a day, which equates to roughly between $15,000 to $18,000 a month right here in Western Washington. And as soon as you hear those numbers, you'll say, quit holding my hands. I'll walk down the hallway on my own. I don't need you to help walk me down. And now you will become a resident in the nursing home part, probably of the same building, where your costs will come down to $9,000 to $12,000 a month. And either way you take a look at it, for the average consumer, this will become a financial issue. Mind you, financial planning is where we had put all our effort in to get ready for retirement, and now this becomes a financial issue. And if you're lucky, somebody at this juncture will say to you, you need to go see an elder law attorney. And you know what your answer is going to be? What the heck do I need to see a lawyer for? I have all my documents in place. I have a will. No, I have a trust. My kids will not have to go through probate. I have the powers of attorney, living wills, all the documents there in place. No, you do need to see an elder law attorney. Why? Because these attorneys will, one, help you cope with these crazy expenses that come from long-term care. And if you go to the right elder law attorney, their best contribution will be to help you realize that the goal at this point of time is not just to protect money, but it is to help you find a way so that you can take good care of your loved one who is now fallen ill, so they can have as good a quality of life as is possible without them running out of money and without you losing your sanity in the process. And therefore, this elder law attorney probably will work with a team of medical, financial, and legal professionals to give you a more complete answer. And now this will become a legal issue. Now, who do you blame in all of this? Remember when we talked about traditional planning, we looked at health insurance to be a starting point where we wanted to secure our healthcare needs. We looked at housing, we looked at finances, probably dealt with a financial planner. We went to probably a lawyer, or at least went to some website where you could download some forms with some amount of information backing your efforts to prepare these documents. Who do you blame at this point of time? The lawyer? The doctor? The financial planner? Well, nobody wants to take the blame. The doctor does exactly what they're supposed to do. They saved your life, sent you to the rehab center, didn't care much about what it does to your finances, but that's not my job. The financial planner, they told you to go buy a long-term care insurance policy. You chose not to go ahead and buy the long-term care insurance policy, so I didn't do anything wrong. The lawyers, they prepared all these documents. Who gets what when I die? How do I want to die? Who's going to manage my stuff till I die? They got you ready to die because that's what law school teaches us. I didn't do anything wrong. And the reality is this: everyone is busy doing their job, and yet you, the person who is going to be dealing with some form of incapacity, will find that all this careful planning that you had done is going to prove to be a recipe for disaster for majority of people who deal with incapacities. Now, how do you do this thing differently? Well, it's not too difficult. Remember what the goals are in retirement. At some point in time, your goals will become, I don't want to end up in a nursing home. I want to protect my money. I don't want to become a burden on my loved ones. And if you're going to have those goals, recognize that the nightmares usually are going to start when people lose their health. So from a healthcare perspective, wouldn't it be a better way to plan healthcare so you can focus on preventative healthcare? And what can you do up there? You should better understand how the healthcare insurance industry works. Yes, the healthcare insurance industry, because that's the industry that you rely on to give you access to healthcare. Do you have the right health insurance policy that will give you access to the right medical providers? Does your insurance policy have provisions in there that can help you so you're able to better focus on eat right, exercise, socialize? And yes, there are some policies that are better than others, and there's some wisdom in knowing how to use an insurance policy is the difference whether you're going to get only reactive after illness care, or are you going to be able to focus the attention of your providers to preventative care so you don't have the heart attack or cancer to begin with? Next, you will need to understand that having a pool of money to retire with is not going to be enough by itself. Wealth alone does not give you a good quality of life. What do I mean by that? I mean Casey Kasem by that. Do you remember Casey Kasem? He was a guy, a DJ, the famous DJ in America, who had amassed a $80 million plus estate, who could accomplish the most basic hopes we have in life. I hope to be able to live my life out in my own home in peace. He gets dragged from California through Oregon to die in Gig Harbor, Washington. The sheer arrogance that we have, that we just have a large enough pool of money. If we have a long-term care insurance policy, then somehow life will turn out just fine. It's just that, it's sheer arrogance. Having money is important, yes, but having a plan that when you can no longer manage your own affairs, that the people you have left in charge will know exactly how to use your money so they can help you get an outcome in life that is in keeping with your expectations and not simply what a social worker or a discharge planner at the hospital is going to think is best for you, that is going to some rehab center, is probably more important than just having the money by itself. So financial planning has to be rethought, and you have to think differently about how you approach your finances. And finally, you have to recognize that aging is a family affair. Just hoping that you don't become a burden on other people doesn't make it so. And you have to put different provisions on your legal planning. The same power of attorney that you're going to prepare that names your spouse and or your children to step up to the plate and manage your affairs when you can no longer take care of them yourself is going to prove to be a guarantee that when you fall ill, you will become a burden on whoever you have named to be in that position. Why? Because the average power of attorney will say, oh, they'll figure it out. Figure what out? Nobody talks about that. And a good power of attorney should never be one that says you figure it out. A good power of attorney should be one that says you figure this out. So if you want to have a different outcome in life, you want to say, I don't want to end up in a nursing home in retirement. I don't want to end up losing my assets to uncovered long-term care costs. And I don't want to end up a burden on my children. Then you will have to engage in comprehensive, multidisciplinary life planning. And what is that? That's looking at how your health care, your housing, your financial planning, your legal planning, how they all come together. Because the reality is nightmares in retirement will almost always start off as a health issue, which will become a housing issue, which will become a legal issue, which will become at some point in time a financial issue. And if you don't have all of these things working together, you don't have all your financial advisors, your professional legal advisors, your medical providers, all of them working with each other and the solutions fit together, then everyone will be doing their job, but you will be the one left holding the bag. Can you do different? Yes, you can. So what do you do with this information? I'd suggest go to agingoptions.com. And there you'll have an opportunity to register for one of the live events where you can spend about 2 hours of your time gaining education and information about what the problem is in greater detail and what are the solutions. How do you bring everything together? I thank you for watching, and I hope to see you at one of the live events.